They called it the death loop, a place where the only way out was through a mass grave. I was just a child when I watched a soldier throw a 1-month-old infant into the snow because we were no longer needed. My name is Tema, and I am one of the few who survived the sanatorium that became a slaughterhouse. If you think you know the horrors of history, you haven't heard what happened on the banks of the southern Bug River. I came into this world on November 2nd, 1928, in the town of Tulchin in Vinnytsia Oblast. We were 6 in our family, my parents and 4 children. When my father was mobilized into the army, we did not have time to evacuate. We remained in the occupied territory, trapped in a world that was about to become our nightmare. From the very first days of occupation, the invaders showed inhuman cruelty beyond comprehension. They executed innocent people solely because they were Jewish. They forced women, the elderly, and children to perform impossible labor. They destroyed buildings and homes, among them my own childhood home, reduced to rubble and memory. But the true horror began in those early December days of 1941, when the order came. All Jews of Tulchin were to be marched to the Pechera concentration camp. The further the years recede, the clearer my memories of war become, sharper, more conscious, more unbearable. The pain for those killed by war, for those who perished in the dungeons of concentration camps and ghettos, never fades. These feelings burn especially close for us, the former child prisoners, the children of war who never knew the joys of childhood. I remember that December day of 1941 in excruciating detail. Everything connected to war carved itself into my sharp, emotional child's memory, and then entered my life forever, impossible to erase. It was an overcast, dismal morning. It seemed as though even nature itself wanted to underscore the terrible meaning of what was about to unfold. Under the threatening shouts of policemen, grabbing whatever belongings and food we could carry, mentally saying goodbye to everything close and dear to our hearts, we stepped into the street and merged into a column of people. They drove us along the longest, most difficult road to the village of Pechera. Those who fell behind were beaten, shot. Many never reached the camp. Their bodies were left on those terrible roads of war. Overcoming unimaginable hardship, I arrived at the camp together with my family, my mama, my sisters, and my little brother. The entire territory of the camp was enclosed by a very high stone wall. The entrance passed through a guardhouse where Romanian soldiers and their collaborators, the policemen, always stood with rifles and clubs in their hands. They called the concentration camp Mrtvaya Petlia, the death loop, a symbolic name, a place with no way out. The prisoners of this camp existed in a monstrous world of evil and violence. At every step, we were stalked by fear. Fear for the lives of our loved ones, fear of the cruelty of the policemen, fear of death by starvation. All of this is burned into my memory for life. The building where they placed us stood on the picturesque banks of the southern Bug River. Before the war, it had been a military sanatorium, a place of healing. Now, 30 to 40 of us lived in each ward. The building was unheated in winter. We were given no food at all. We slept on the floor. In this monstrous world of evil and violence, they brutally mocked everything connected with that beautiful word, human. I still hear the words that echo in my consciousness with unspeakable pain. You are Jews. We do not need you. These words were spoken by a Romanian soldier who threw a 1-month-old infant into the snow, killing the child before the eyes of the mother. In that first winter, disease began to spread. From illness, cold, and hunger, 60 to 80 people died each day. Once, a doctor named Beletsky arrived at the camp from Tulchin. When he learned that 60 to 80 people were dying daily, he said, calmly and without hesitation, 100 to 200 people should be dying each day. These words were spoken by a man who had taken the Hippocratic Oath. His remark meant a tightening of the regime for prisoners. And with each passing day, more and more people died. Children died before their mothers' eyes. Parents, sisters, and brothers died before the eyes of children. Here, they buried alive those whose hearts still beat weakly, whose lips could barely whisper, "Mama, daughter, son." Soon, terrible grief came to our family. In February of 1942, my mama died from disease, cold, and hunger. A year later, my little sister and my baby brother died as well. Even now, I feel as though I can still hear the last beats of their hearts. And my little brother. More than 50 years have passed, but I cannot forget his emaciated, pale little face, his hair standing on end, his thin little hand, and his barely audible voice asking, "Please, give me a crumb of bread." This is what my 8-year-old precious brother said, addressing those in the ward who held a piece of bread. People, of course, shared their last crumbs, but even that could not save him from death by starvation. The boundless bitterness, the spiritual pain, the sorrow caused by the loss of my loved ones, so deeply loved by me and my older sister, was unbearable. The camp destroyed prisoners both physically and morally. Some people even lost their minds. There are episodes of camp life that I cannot forget. They entered my memory forever. It was a pleasant summer day. An elderly man, who had once, it seemed, taken part in amateur theater, found an old wooden crate somewhere in the yard. Using it as a stage, he stood in the courtyard. He filled his mouth with shards of glass. Then, looking around, he spat them out. Convulsions followed. And then, crying and laughing at the same time, in a pleasant voice, he began to sing. The wide Dnieper roars and moans. There was also a 14-year-old orphaned girl. She was completely naked, locked inside a small outbuilding that resembled a chicken coop. The entrance was blocked by part of a fence. We could see her, throwing herself from corner to corner. No one could remain indifferent. Each of us tried, wanted, to give her our own, perhaps last, piece of bread. But she took nothing. We threw pieces of bread over the fence. A few days passed, and that girl died. Then came a warm September day. Germans arrived at the camp. They wanted to separate children from their mothers, turn the able-bodied into slaves, and take them away for forced labor. The remaining prisoners were to be exterminated. Beyond the village of Pechera, pits had already been dug for us, but fate decided otherwise. The Romanian prefect, Stratulat, managed to contact Antonescu. Soon, a telegram arrived. It stated that Pechera was, at that time, Romanian territory. The Germans had no right to take prisoners away for forced labor or to shoot those who remained. For us, this was a brief moment of joy. We were saved from immediate death, but grief, tears, and suffering remained with us as before. Humiliation returned, disease returned, death returned. Women and the elderly continued to be exhausted by impossible labor. Even children were forced to work. And I worked, together with other children. The most terrible work assigned to us was cleaning the territory after human waste. We were children, yet we were forced to remove filth with our bare hands. There are no words to describe how vile, how savage, how cruel this was. It stripped away the last sense of dignity and left only humiliation. After the death of my mother, my little sister, and my brother, I remained in the camp with my older sister. We were alone together, surrounded by death. Our desire to survive was enormous. We fought hunger in every way we could. Hiding from the policemen, we gathered frozen beets left behind in the fields. To us, they became a delicacy. We washed potato peels in several changes of water and cooked them outside, on the street, using bricks as a makeshift stove. Hunger never left us, but we learned how to endure it. Our greatest salvation came from honest, decent, kind, and compassionate people from the nearby villages: Zabuzhye, Alexandrovka, Petrovka, Danivka, Bortniki. Even in the village of Pechera itself, there were good people who helped us. But getting out of the camp to reach these villages was extremely dangerous. In winter, it was especially hard. Summer was a little easier. Drinking water was easier to obtain. We descended to the river. There we could wash at least something, using chalk instead of soap. In the evenings, my sister and I would go to the Bug River. There we found a rock shaped like a tent. Inside it, we hid and spent the night until dawn. At sunrise, when the policemen dozed at their posts, my sister and I climbed over the high stone wall and made our way into the village. Years passed, and even many years later, when we returned to Pechera every year, my sister and I always went to that cherished rock. We left flowers there, watered with bitter tears. We remembered the policemen, cruel, greedy, furious in their hatred. Some were especially vicious toward Jews, policemen like Smetansky, Semirenko, and others. How many times they beat me and my sister when we came to the village to beg for a piece of bread. I remember one policeman who struck an elderly man with a bucket with such force that his brains spilled out. After that blow, the man died on the spot. And yet, even among the policemen, there were decent people. I remember one of them. We sought help from strangers, good people who lived by the laws of mercy and kindness. Often, risking their own lives, they let us stay the night. They shared their last piece of bread with us. Thanks to these people, my sister and I survived. We lived long enough to gain freedom and to greet the unforgettable, great, and radiant Victory Day. May that day be blessed forever. More than 50 years have passed, but my sister and I still remember those beautiful people who helped us survive during those terrible days of wartime suffering. We remember those who are no longer alive, and we do not forget those who remain with us in our daily lives. With pride and with truly human gratitude, we remember such compassionate people as Fedorishina from Torkovo, Anna Miranovna Shevchuk, Anna Ostavovna Storchak from Bortniki, Shargorodskaya from Zabuzhye, and Bondar Yevdokia from Zhuravlevka. Pure and bright is our memory of those who perished in the Pechera concentration camp. The memory of Pechera is sacred to us. We have no right to forget. This holy memory we will carry through the years and bequeath to future generations. Yes, we truly have no right to forget. Already in the first year after liberation, sometimes traveling on carts, sometimes walking on foot, we went from Tulchin to Pechera to bow before the memory of the victims of fascism. Today, the journey to Pechera is organized with care and respect. Thanks to the Joint, the Tulchin Sochnut, the Jewish community, and the Committee of Former Child Prisoners, buses are provided free of charge. People come not out of obligation, but out of memory. The entire territory of the mass grave is well maintained. There are memorial markers placed by the relatives of those who perished. I do not know exactly where the ashes of my mama, my little brother, and my little sister rest, but my sons placed memorial markers for them, symbolically, so that they would not be forgotten. I came to Pechera with my children and my grandchildren. In this way, I connected them to the shared, sacred memory of the Pechera concentration camp. In the center of the mass grave stands a statue of a grieving mother. Forever engraved in my consciousness, in my memory, are the words carved into the marble plaque beneath her. Think, human being. Thousands of these unfortunate people did not live to see victory. Fascist monsters and their accomplices brutally cut short the breath, the voices, the thoughts, and the lives of women, children, and the elderly. Their torment and suffering cannot be expressed in words. This is your mother, your father, your brothers and sisters. Do not grieve. Swear that you will never allow such victims again. Maintain a living, sacred memory of them in your descendants. Do not forget, this is what they bequeathed. I believe they also bequeathed to us something more. They bequeathed to us the duty to value kindness and humanity, to cherish friendship between people of different nationalities, to protect peace on our beautiful planet Earth, and to remember, as the poet wrote, the sun is one, and the sky is one. For all time, we are given one Earth, and we are all responsible for peace on the planet. And it will ask each of us to answer. Summarizing my memories and reflections, I want to say once more, years and decades pass, but memory remembers everything. The anxieties, the suffering, the tears of those terrible years, people will remember even through many generations. We, the prisoners of those most horrific years, can never forget the people, the most beautiful and kind, who helped us survive, who helped us reach happiness. People always cherish unity and friendship. Our strength and the light of reason live within them. Share sorrow and joy together, and never forget these wise laws.